Today, we will cover the third section of the principle of cause and effect, the all-determining quality of actions. This aspect of the teaching is crucial. Many people have taken refuge, are studying the Dharma, and consider themselves experienced Buddhists. However, if they were to examine their minds with wisdom, they might realize that they do not fully understand the principle of cause and effect. They may harbor doubts about the law of karma and lack motivation to engage in virtuous actions. The reason for their condition is that they do not truly possess conviction in the principle of cause and effect. Therefore, we must study, contemplate, and regularly practice the undeniable principle of cause and effect. Otherwise, even if you appear to have received a refuge certificate, follow a teacher, read Buddhist texts, and observe precepts, if you do not believe in this principle, you are not yet a true Buddhist. Now that you have faith in Buddhism, ensure that this faith is not a form of superstition or blind worship, which is quite common in both Tibetan and Han areas. In fact, Buddhism is not a belief system based on superstitions. Its doctrines consist of truths. However, some Buddhists are either unaware of this or have not reflected upon it, leading to their views potentially being tainted with incorrect thoughts and their faith being influenced by superstition. If they encounter unfavorable circumstances or negative influences, their views and actions may shift to the wrong side, much like a low-quality product losing color and deteriorating. So, what do Buddhists need the most? They need to internalize the teachings of the Buddha. I have emphasized this repeatedly, and it is also my own experience gained through years of practicing the Dharma. If you can assimilate Mahayana teachings or any Buddhist teachings within your mind, it is more valuable than possessing money and wealth. As a practitioner, if you possess the wish-fulfilling jewel of right views, even if you are penniless, you are still very wealthy. What are the most crucial steps a Buddhist should take to achieve this? They should first listen to and contemplate the Dharma, then put the teachings into practice repeatedly. By following this sequence, no matter what obstacles and difficulties one faces, their faith and wisdom will not regress. Is it worth pursuing this state of non-regression? If the teachings of the Buddha were inconsistent with the truth, like some worldly knowledge and philosophies that are incorrect and do not bring happiness in this life or the next, then it would be acceptable for one's faith to regress. However, Buddhism's doctrines are not like this. Countless empirical examples have validated that the Dharma can indeed bring unimaginable benefits from life to life. Therefore, to cultivate genuine faith in the Dharma, we Buddhists must not ignore or despise foundational teachings, such as the principle of cause and effect, following a qualified teacher, and others. Otherwise, even if an ordinary Buddhist has received the highest teachings, it will be of little help to their spiritual advancement because they have abandoned the most essential and fundamental aspects. Of course, this may not apply to those practitioners with the most superior faculties. I have great faith in the profound state of the Great Perfection, Dzogchen, and the Great Seal, Mahamudra. Thanks to the compassion of my teachers, I received many of these profound teachings from them when I was young. Since then, I have regarded those teachings as wish-fulfilling jewels and have always strived to put them into practice whenever possible. I do not deny the importance of high teachings. The reason I urge you not to pursue high teachings too early is not that I want to keep you focused solely on preliminary practices or only the Sutrayana teachings, or to deter you from seeking the more profound pith instructions. My real intention is to remind you that in order to receive high teachings, you must first establish a solid foundation by studying the foundational teachings. In their countless forms, the pleasure and suffering experienced by every living being, from the highest existence of the God realm to the lowest abyss of the hell realm, arise solely from the positive and negative actions that each being has accumulated in the past. Of course, we are not promoting fatalism, the philosophical belief that everything that happens is predetermined and cannot be changed. Instead, we refer to the truth that all the happiness and suffering we experience in this life primarily result from our actions in previous lives, with our actions and aspirations in this life serving as supporting conditions. This has been clearly explained in the Treasury of Abhidharma. All living beings, from the summit of existence to the hell of ultimate torment, lead different lives. For example, even among siblings from the same family, some live happy lives, some live miserable lives, and some lead mediocre lives. Their varied experiences, both good and bad, are inseparably connected to the positive and negative actions they have taken in the past. Take humans, for example. Some people effortlessly possess material abundance, talents, and noble qualities, while others, despite working hard their entire lives, encounter nothing but misery in the end. Why do their experiences differ so greatly? This disparity arises from their actions in previous lives. It is stated in the Sutra of 100 Actions, the pleasure and suffering of all beings, the Buddha said, arise from their actions. The variety of actions create the variety of beings, leading them to wander through samsara. Vast and boundless is this net of actions. Through his non-dual wisdom, the Buddha has revealed to us the truth that our happiness and suffering stem from our past actions. Our actions were driven by various thoughts. Some actions were motivated by afflictive thoughts, such as greed, hatred, ignorance, envy, and pride. Others were inspired by virtuous thoughts, like faith, compassion, wisdom, and renunciation. And some actions were motivated by both afflictive and virtuous thoughts. Different thoughts lead to different actions, which in turn result in the diverse existence of living beings who subsequently have varied experiences. Some of you are living happy lives, like Shabkar Sukdruk Rangdrol, who never encountered obstacles in his practice and whose Dharma activities were extensive. However, others seem to be living difficult lives, plagued by poor health, negative moods, and a bad temperament. I have noticed that some of my class participants often wear a worried expression and frequently voice complaints, saying things like, "What should I do? I'm not in good health. I have a terrible headache and chest pain." These individuals are engulfed in misery. They neither eat well nor dress appropriately. They appear disheveled and often stumble over rocks while walking. Unlike their fortunate Dharma friends, they seem immune to success and happiness, which reflects the karmic result of their past actions. In the endless cycles of life and death, the web of karma is indeed vast. Worldly people believe that satellite communications and the internet are extensive due to their global coverage. In reality, they are not as vast, since they can only reach locations where the necessary equipment is available. They cannot extend to every corner of the oceans, outer space, or the realms of all living beings. However, the net of actions encompasses everything. The Sutra of the Right Mindfulness of Dharma states, "The net of actions that brings forth infinite worlds arises from the seeds of our minds. It's difficult to ascertain exactly how actions accumulate in the mind, except for the Buddhas. The net of actions originates from our minds. Different minds have accumulated the karma of various actions, resulting in the diversity of our environments and living beings. These subtle causal conditions are beyond the comprehension of ordinary beings, and even arhats and bodhisattvas cannot grasp the complete picture concerning all causes and conditions. Only the Buddha, who has completely eliminated afflictive and cognitive obscurations, can truly understand all. Therefore, regarding matters of causality, please refrain from making blunt assertions and jumping to conclusions, such as stating that negative actions lead to no consequences and positive actions do not bring happiness. Such denials of the principle of cause and effect are indeed foolish. No matter how much strength, power, wealth, or possessions we may currently have, none of these accompany us after death. The only things we carry with us are the positive and negative actions we have accumulated throughout our lives, which then determine our rebirth in higher or lower realms within the cycle of samsara. The Sutra of Instructions to the King states, "When the time arrives for your death, O king, neither possession nor friends and family can follow. Yet wherever beings come and go, their actions follow them like a shadow." This instruction to the king also applies to everyone, including the head of government and the Secretary General of the United Nations. At the moment of our death, everything will be left behind, including our most cherished body. Only the actions we took will follow us, like our own shadows. The Sutra of the Right Mindfulness of Dharma says, "Family and friends will eventually part, but our karma never leaves. Good and bad deeds follow us into future lives at all times." Many people are born into environments where they are surrounded by family and friends who hold wrong views. Due to this external influence and the impact of their families, they also develop erroneous beliefs. Even if they have accumulated merit from past lives and received blessings from the Buddha, and even if faith and wisdom occasionally arise within them, they can still be easily blinded by the dark clouds of wrong views that envelop them. Therefore, it is crucial that we constantly discipline ourselves with mindfulness and vigilance. We should not engage in various wrongdoings under the influence of others, nor should we fall under the false impression that "I have never believed your so-called right views since I was young." If we succumb to these influences, we will also be led to lower realms. How truly sad. The effects of our positive or negative actions may not be immediately evident or identifiable. The consequences won't manifest as quickly as the bleeding one might experience from a cut. Instead, they are like growing crops. It takes time after the farmer sows seeds for the grain to be ready for harvest. Another analogy is that it takes several years for a student to finally graduate from school and to apply their professional training in real life. A cause and its effect do not arise in the same lifetime. Sometimes the effect of an action manifests in this life, sometimes in the next, and sometimes tens of thousands of years later. Nevertheless, there is no doubt that the effect will eventually arise. We will experience the effects of our actions when the appropriate conditions align. As the Sutra of 100 Actions states, beings' actions will never fade away, though 100 kalpas may pass. When the right conditions align, their fruits will surely ripen. A similar verse can also be found in the Ksudrakavastu section of the Mula Sarvastivada Vinaya. We must study such important teachings. Otherwise, given the challenging and complex circumstances we face, the light of our right views can easily be obscured by the dark clouds of unfavorable environments, preventing us from seeing the truth. Since my youth, I have had an innate correct understanding of the principle of cause and effect. Because of this, I have never doubted its validity. However, many people I know, including young Tibetans, are skeptical about this principle. In fact, their doubt is unfounded. It is akin to a person who knows nothing about farming, doubting that a seed will bear fruit if planted. An experienced farmer, however, has no doubt that a seed, unless destroyed by fire or water, will certainly bear fruit when the right conditions are met. Therefore, it is crucial for today's youth to study the Dharma, which encompasses ultimate truths. Some individuals place immense importance on grammar, poetry, and performance, devoting significant time and energy to these pursuits. This is acceptable, as in a broader context, we should have a well-rounded understanding of the 5 major sciences, or the 10 sciences in our quest for enlightenment. On the other hand, our human lives are fleeting, making it impossible for us to fully grasp a wide range of transcendental teachings and worldly knowledge. Consequently, we must prioritize the most essential Dharma teachings that can free us from the cycles of life and death. Otherwise, we will deeply regret not having done so at the moment of our passing. A government official from a nearby county once had a special connection with the Laringdar Buddhist Institute. She has been studying the Dharma for years, and her views and practice are commendable. Recently, she insisted on meeting me, expressing that she had some Dharma-related questions to ask. As she passed through the main gate of the Institute on her way here, a deep sense of faith in the great Jigme Punsok Rinpoche and the Dharma arose within her. That night, she had a dream in which the great Jigme Punsok Rinpoche told her, "Now that you have encountered such a great guru and the Dharma, why not engage in diligent study? In the future, even if you wish to study, the Dharma may not be available anymore." Upon waking, she reflected on this remark, which greatly helped guide the direction of her life. Each of us may embark on the pursuit of the Dharma for different reasons and opportunities. Regardless, the chance to encounter both the Dharma and qualified teachers is far more precious than any worldly achievement. Many people believe that stumbling upon a good business opportunity, a pleasant colleague, or a great enterprise to work for is a stroke of luck. However, I believe that encountering the Dharma is the greatest fortune because it can bring immense benefits to this life and future lives. Without a good start in this life, characterized by virtuous actions and the abandonment of negativity, driven by past actions, it remains uncertain when we will finally come across the Dharma and liberate ourselves from the cyclical suffering of samsara. Once our karmic consequences manifest, there is no escape. Even as the Buddha himself were to appear, some fixed karma remains irreversible. The Vinaya says, "The inconceivable force of karma, though distant, inevitably draws one in. When the karmic consequence comes to fruition, there is no escape regardless of one's attempts to evade it." So even if you wish to escape the karmic consequence, you surely won't succeed. Eventually, the effects of your actions will ripen upon you. Jigme Lingpa says the following in the Treasury of Precious Qualities: "When the golden Garuda soars high in the sky, though its shadow may momentarily vanish from sight, it remains inseparable from its body." Likewise, when causes and conditions come together, the effects of actions will inevitably manifest. When a bird takes off and soars high into the sky, its shadow seems to disappear. However, this does not mean that the shadow ceases to exist. Wherever the bird eventually lands, its shadow reappears, just as dark and distinct as before. Similarly, although our past actions, whether good or bad, may be invisible for now, they are bound to return to us eventually. Consequently, our past good actions will bring us happiness, while our bad actions will lead to suffering. The Sutra of the Right Mindfulness of Dharma contains a verse that uses the simile of a bird to illustrate the karmic effect. It is like a bird tied with a rope. No matter how far it flies, the bird will be pulled back. Sentient beings are bound by the rope of karma. Thus, their situation is the same as that of the bird. Consequently, the ropes of positive and negative actions have tightly bound us, and no one can escape their effects. Even if the karmic effects have not yet ripened, it is only a matter of time unless we have attained enlightenment, as stated in Master Yongjia's Song of Realization. When the true nature of reality is realized, there is neither the self of person nor phenomena. The actions leading to hell are purified in an instant. Enlightenment burns all karmic seeds, alleviating or even removing karmic effects. However, living beings who have not attained enlightenment cannot escape the bonds of karma. Many relevant stories on this topic exist in Tibetan Buddhism as well as in other schools of Buddhism. One such story is found in the record of pointing to the moon in the supplement to the Buddhist canon. Once there was a Dharma master named Wen Tonghui, who, in his youth, served as a novice monk at Baiyun Temple in Kaifeng City, Henan Province. During that time, his responsibilities included caring for the temple's basin. One day, a fish vendor washed his hands in the basin, which greatly upset Wen Tonghui. This led to a dispute between the two, and unfortunately, Wen Tonghui accidentally killed the vendor. Due to this incident, Wen Tonghui fled to avoid punishment. He sought refuge at Zongqi Temple, located in Huazhou, Shanxi Province. He resided there for 20 years, diligently practicing the Dharma until he attained enlightenment. Eventually, Wen Tonghui became the abbot of the temple. One day, Wen Tonghui suddenly told his disciples, "Witness me resolving a case from 20 years ago." The Sangha asked for more information, and Wen Tonghui replied, "You'll find out at noon." He then sat in the lotus posture, waiting. Around noon, a soldier entered the temple. Upon seeing Wen Tonghui, the soldier inexplicably became angry and drew his bow, aiming to shoot the Dharma master. Wen Tonghui placed his palms together and said, "I have been expecting you for quite some time." Surprised, the soldier asked, "We don't know each other, but why did I get angry when I saw you? And why did I want to kill you?" Wen Tonghui answered, "You have already been reborn into this life, so of course you don't remember your past life. I have not been reborn yet, so I do remember. If one owes money, one should pay it back. If one owes a life, one should repay it with one's own life. So please kill me right away." Then the Dharma master told the soldier what had happened between them in the past. After listening, the soldier had a moment of realization and suddenly exclaimed, "Revenge leads to more revenge. When will it ever end? The entanglement has stretched across many lifetimes. How can it be mere coincidence? It is better to seek a resolution with the master. Now I shall head straight to the land of the West." Having said that, the soldier passed away while standing, with the bow and arrows in his hands. Wen Tonghui rose from his seat and requested the 4 essential items of the study: a calligraphy brush, ink, paper, and an inkstone. He then wrote a verse that read, "I have wandered for 33 years and changed my identities a few times. Who would have thought that the person I once killed chose not to seek vengeance against me?" He then set down his brush and entered parinirvana while seated. From this story, we can see that our karma follows us like our own shadows, and this is indeed true. Some individuals have never harmed others in this lifetime, yet they are often falsely accused and insulted without justification. This is the karmic result of their past actions. As they carry unresolved karmic debts from previous lives, they must simply endure the consequences in this life. At the relative level, the principle of cause and effect is undeniable. So how could this not apply to ordinary individuals like us, when even Buddhas and Arhats, who have completely freed themselves from all karmic and emotional defilements, still experience the consequences of their past actions? A truly wise person will not arbitrarily act against the principle of cause and effect. Just as a person who understands the law will not carelessly take a life. In contrast, those who know nothing of this principle often boast and believe they are exempt from it, engaging in wrongful acts such as smoking, drinking, and killing. Ultimately, they will face severe karmic consequences. Here is a story recorded in both the Ekottara Agama and the Dhammapada. One day, Varudaka, the king of Sarvasti, marched with a large army to invade Kapilavastu, the homeland of the Sakya clan. On 2 previous occasions, the king had sent his forces, but the Buddha had managed to convince him to withdraw. This time, however, the Buddha declared, "The past karma of the Sakya clan has now come to fruition, and they must face the consequences." In the end, King Varudaka's troops mercilessly slaughtered 80,000 members of the Sakya clan. At that very moment, the Buddha was overcome with a severe headache, the pain so intense that it felt as though Mount Meru itself was pressing down upon his head. When his disciples inquired about the reason for this, the Buddha explained, "Many lifetimes ago, those Sakyas were fishermen who made their living by killing and consuming countless fish. On one occasion, they captured 2 large fish but chose not to kill them immediately, instead leaving them tied to a pole. As the 2 fish struggled in pain, stranded out of water, they thought, 'These men are harming us even though we have done nothing to them. May the time come when we can harm them in return without them having caused us any harm.' The effect of the thoughts of the 2 large fish was their rebirth as King Virudaka and his minister Matropakara, while the rest of the fish killed by the fishermen were reborn as their soldiers. These forces have now massacred the Sakyas. At that time, I was the child of one of those fishermen. When I saw the 2 fish tied up and writhing in unbearable pain as they dried, I laughed. The effect of that action is the headache I suffer today. However, if I had not cultivated the virtues I now possess, I too would have been killed by Virudaka's troops. Therefore, we must not rejoice in the actions of others that result in killing. Even the Buddha himself had to experience the karmic effect of rejoicing in the killing of the fish in his previous life, let alone we ordinary beings. Why do many practitioners often say, "I have heavy karmic debts"? It's because since beginningless time, we must have committed all kinds of wrongdoings, including killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, holding wrong views, wishing harm on others, and the like. Not to mention our negative actions in previous lives, there are numerous wrongdoings from this life that we can remember, from our birth until now. If we don't confess and purify them now, it may be too late for us to do so in the future. The Sutra of the 10 Causes contains several other stories about the karmic effects the Buddha experienced. The story of Sundari slandering the Buddha. Prostitute Sundari was deeply unhappy with the Buddha when she noticed that many people, including her lovers and patrons, were following him and becoming ordained as monks. At that time, Buddhism was flourishing more than any other religion. Some Tirthakas, seeking to destroy Buddhism, approached Sundari and asked her to pretend to be pregnant and spread rumors that her unborn child belonged to the Buddha. The rumors eventually reached the king, who sent someone to investigate. Fearing their conspiracy would be uncovered, the Tirthakas murdered Sundari. However, the king still managed to uncover the truth. The Sangha questioned why the Buddha had to endure this, and he explained that it was the karmic consequence of his past actions. In one of his previous lives, the Buddha had killed a prostitute and placed her body in the room of a Pratyeka Buddha, almost leading to the death penalty for the Pratyeka Buddha. As a result, even after attaining Buddhahood, the Buddha himself was slandered. The story of the Buddha eating grain for horses. Once, for 90 days, the Buddha had to live on grain intended for horses, along with 500 arhats. Why was this? During the time of Buddha Vipassi, a Brahmin who was one of Buddha Shakyamuni's past lives, noticed a sick monk accepting food offerings and became very jealous. The Brahmin said, the bald-headed monk should eat grain for horses instead of gourmet food. The 500 disciples of the Brahmin agreed and echoed the same sentiment. As a result, after the Buddha and his 500 arhats attained realization, they still had to experience the karmic effect of their statements against the sick monk. The story of Chincha framing the Buddha. Chincha, the daughter of a Brahmin, tied a bowl to her belly and claimed to be pregnant with the Buddha. She announced that she would give birth soon and asked the Buddha for some butter to raise the baby. The god Indra had enough of Chincha's defamation of the Buddha, so he transformed into a rat, got into her clothes, gnawed the rope, and suddenly the bowl fell to the ground. When the crowd saw this, they cheered loudly, saying, "Rejoice, your baby has been born." Regarding the cause of this incident, the Buddha stated that during the time of Buddha all-conquering, there were two monks, one named Invincible and the other named Always Joyful, who frequently received offerings from a female patron named Illusory. Invincible had freed himself from afflictive thoughts, so his offerings were plentiful, whereas Always Joyful was still consumed by his afflictions, resulting in meager offerings. Always Joyful became envious and slandered Invincible by claiming that he had an affair with Illusory. Monk Always Joyful was Buddha Shakyamuni in a past life, and Illusory was Chincha. Due to this past action, the Buddha was slandered by others, even after attaining Buddhahood. As such, sometimes we may harbor no animosity toward others, yet we are falsely accused and slandered, seemingly without reason. This is undoubtedly the consequence of our past actions. Buddhists should have a deep understanding of the principle of cause and effect. The great Jigme Punsok Rinpoche emphasized the importance of the principle of cause and effect to us, his disciples. Whenever he imparted this teaching, we would remember it for a long time and contemplate it deeply. Consequently, whatever circumstances we encounter in life, whether favorable or unfavorable, we naturally attribute them to the karmic outcomes of our past actions. The story of the Buddha's foot being injured by a splinter. On another occasion, the Buddha suffered an injury to his foot from an acacia splinter, an effect of having killed the black spearman in a past life when he was a bodhisattva. According to an account in another sutra, the act of killing was not directed toward the black spearman, but toward a merchant. Here is the story. Many kalpas ago, there were two merchants, each accompanied by 500 men, who set sail in search of treasures. The island they arrived at was filled with abundant provisions. Upon arrival, one merchant decided to stay, while the other wished to return home. A goddess then appeared in the air and warned them, "You should not linger here for too long, as the island will be submerged in water within 7 days." A demoness, who desired to end everyone's life on the island, refuted the goddess's warning, stating, "This place is filled with happiness and abundance. How could it possibly be flooded? What the goddess just said is nothing more than a falsehood. You should not believe it." The merchant who wanted to return home followed the goddess's advice, directing his men to prepare the boat and refrain from coveting anything on the island. After 7 days, a flood indeed arrived. By the time the island was submerged, the merchant and his men had already boarded the boat. The merchant who wished to remain did not prepare for the flood, so he engaged in a fight with the other merchant over the boat. In the course of the struggle, he was killed by the merchant on the boat, who was one of the past lives of Buddha Shakyamuni. As a result, the merchant who committed the act of killing had to endure the karmic consequences for numerous lifetimes. Despite the Buddha having attained the Vajra body, his foot was still injured by a splinter from an acacia tree. The acacia splinter had been following the Buddha from the human realm to the God realm. Wherever the Buddha went, the splinter followed. Eventually, the Buddha dismissed his sangha, extended his right foot, and allowed the splinter to pass through it. As the Buddha's foot bled, Ananda entered the room. Upon seeing the wound on the Buddha's foot, Ananda fainted and collapsed to the ground. Of course, the Buddha has attained full enlightenment, which exempts him from karmic retribution. Thus, some scriptures state that the Buddha experiencing the residual karmic effect is merely a provisional teaching. Nevertheless, we do not discuss this issue here, as it may be beyond the comprehension of our ordinary minds. According to Buddhist scriptures, the Buddha did indeed appear sick at times. Here is the story of the Buddha experiencing joint pain. Once the Buddha endured excruciating pain in one of his joints. This suffering stemmed from a past action when he worked as a doctor and intentionally prescribed the wrong medicine to a patient who refused to pay for his previous treatment. Tragically, the patient lost his life due to the incorrect medicine. Therefore, we must understand that our actions will definitely yield corresponding karmic results. The Ekatara Agama states, doing bad or good, the consequence will correspond to the action. It's like sowing grains, the harvest will correspond to the seed. If you sow a pea, it will only yield peas, not wheat or corn. Similarly, your positive actions won't lead to pain, and your negative actions won't result in happiness. Thus, it is crucial for everyone to firmly believe in the principle of cause and effect. It is not enough to merely discuss it. We must truly understand it and apply it in our daily lives. This way, we will know what to do and what to avoid. Currently, our society is filled with misguided views and values, and many individuals engage in wrongful actions driven by selfish motives. Their actions will inevitably lead to negative consequences in the future, which is terrifying. Therefore, we must always remain vigilant regarding our actions and the karmic effects they may produce.